Welcome everyone to yet another video of the Banned from Broadcast series. This one will be the last broadcast of the original series. To any new members, this video will be an analysis and rundown of the 6th episode in the series. With that being said, enjoy. The introduction reveals a similar sight, a recall from the first episode in the series, as we uncover the sinister truth of a banned videotape. In 2007, Kanagawa Prefecture, southwest of Tokyo, Shunsako Kumoda, who is a well-known video journalist, received a distressing letter from Masaku Sungu, a housewife who is deeply concerned of her safety after her otherwise normal husband has become aggressively violent for unknown reasons and now fears for her life. Through several interviews and a closer inspection of the footage, it was condemned, banned from broadcast. However, this footage will only reveal a part of a bigger story. Several factors are required for a following broadcast. Otherwise, the visual entertainment will get shut down by the unsatisfied benefactors. This is Banned from Broadcast 6, Death Limit.
私は今この手紙をくれた主婦のところに来ております。今から直接会って話してみたいと思います。
Shunsako Kumoda is a well-known video journalist who has a history of uncovering social issues face to face. This time he is pressing with the issue of DV, short for domestic violence. He interviews a 29-year-old housewife, Musuno, who has been married to Suo for the past 3 years. The bruises on her face reveals her troubling circumstances. Kumoda interviews her, and this is what she said. He pushes me, he hits me, and he often throws things too. One time he was watching a recorded baseball game, and he suddenly lost it halfway through. At the time I just happened to make boiling water, and he threw it at me. She tells us the sudden change in his behavior began around 2 years ago. There are no warning signs before he suddenly snaps, although it could be work-related stress. However, he never complains about anything relating to his work. Without a word, Musuno is hinting towards another explanation. The unknown factor of her husband's aggression makes her very worried about what he might do next. But in order for Kumoda to help her, he sets up hidden cameras in their living room, so Masuno must hold on for a little longer. In the meantime, Kumoda watches the surveillance system inside his van, waiting for something to happen. From the outskirts, this may look like an ordinary evening between a married couple, but this beautiful image will soon collapse into chaos by one silly mistake.
ごめん、忘れちゃった。
はい。
Kumoda is watching from the van, shocked by what he is witnessing. He is hesitating to interfere or not, but he tells us he can't look away. A bit of a strange statement if you ask me. But he has probably watched too many social experiments to know the difference.
He's not actually a racist person, so...
We are then shortly interrupted by some grabs that are very not important, but that do talk to a psychiatrist that give us some context to what might be happening. After World War II, Japan became a nation that pursued convenience, but the consequence of this is that families have become increasingly isolated like individual units, just surviving in the middle of the city. With fewer close friends, this became a breeding ground for domestic violence. Kumoda visits Masuno once again after the husband has left for work. Masuno tells Kumoda she wants this to be over, but Kumoda replies that he will make sure that she's protected if anything did happen. He wants to make her understand that this could help a lot of people and he will always be watching from the van. In his words, this terrible reality must be exposed for the public eye, but he needs more footage of this brutal circumstance.
僕は絶対に奥さんを守りますから。僕のジャーナリスト生命をかけてでも。
We then have a callback to Kumoda's most famous work as a journalist. A documentary about a severe case of bullying that ended up with multiple people dead. In 1995, Kumoda covered a story about a bullying group at a high school in the Kanto region. He directly interviewed the victims, exposing the cruel and insidious nature of the bullying. He managed to interview the leader of the bullying group, but things did not end well. Soon after this, the student Uluma Kami was ultimately convinced into dousing herself with gasoline and tragically died, while the fate of the bully leader remains unknown, supposedly dead as well. This tragic set of events had changed Kumoda. From that moment on, he had devoted himself to save people through journalism. This documentary was the reason why Masono contacted him after she had witnessed the horrors of the documentary. We are back in the van. Kumoda watches the surveillance, but an unusual sight awaits him. A week passes, but nothing seems to be happening. You would expect Toosu to be violent. However, when the camera turns to the family, he is in a rather good mood. Kumoda is not satisfied with the results and makes an unusual request.
はいそうなんです。
もしもし菰田です。とりあえず黙って聞いてもらえますか。このままですと、2人の夫婦の赤裸々な姿を撮ることはできないんです。ですからちょっと旦那さんを困らせてみてもらいたいんですけども、例えば彼が何か起こるようなことを言ってもらえますか。お願いします。
Masono is left with little to no choice to think about the situation, so she acts upon the request and tries to provoke her husband to also.
この間父ちゃんが殴ったところ少し痛いな。
俺悪いんか。全部俺悪いんか。おい。
If we do follow what the psychiatrist said earlier, this must be due to isolation, but the whole thing seems rather odd. What is triggering Tsuo to act so violently? And how big of a price is Masono willing to pay in order to satisfy Kumoda? Before that can be answered, there are more unexpected things on the horizon. Roughly 20 days into the coverage, Masono brings us some unexpected news. She tells us Tsuo was struck by a car in a hit-and-run accident while on his way home. Lucky for him, he only suffered a leg injury and was afterwards hospitalized. It all doesn't sound too bad until the truth is revealed.
インターネットを通じて犯罪行為を請け負い代行するいわゆる闇サイト。松さんが夫の殺害依頼を送信した闇サイトは復讐専門サイトシエロ。
Masono reveals, about a month ago, she had sent a request to get her husband killed on the website Cielo. The website's name itself is a Spanish word for heaven or sky, probably referring to an angel of death. Afterwards, she immediately regretted her decision and she tried to cancel multiple times, but she never got a reply on her cancellation. She now fears that her husband's accident is not a coincidental one, but a result of the people behind this website. These kinds of websites are actually quite common on the dark web. However, most of them who claim to indulge in criminal activities are either run by scammers or in law enforcement, like 99.9% of them, especially sites who claim to do hitman activities. That's all, back to the plot.
すぐもう本当にまた取り消してくださいって送ったんですけど、やっぱり返信なくて。
The email Masono received reads, "Your wish will be granted within 1 month. Once your wish is fulfilled, please transfer 50,000 yen in cash to the bank listed below." Due to Toso's injury, Masono is now forced to stay with her unhinged husband until he is able to work again. But after only a few days, something has changed within him.
今までごめんね。
何が？
こうやって怪我して分かったのが、やっぱ俺にとって一番大切なのは、お前だなって。
So the whole thing came full circle. I might have changed some dialogue, but a emotional Masono tells us that she had forgotten that he used to feel like a brother to her. Nonetheless, this peace won't last long. One day we meet a panicking Masono who had received a new email.
望みって主人殺されちゃうってことですかね。菰田さんどうしよう。
そうさ、ちょっと落ち着きましょう。
The situation had escalated to a new degree, but Kumada promises to keep an eye on him. He will monitor him for the next 3 days. Off screen, Toso has regained the ability to move around almost freely, still with a bit of trouble though. Komoda is rather skeptical about the whole situation and might not be as good-hearted as she wants to appear as.
その危険な状況をカメラに収めることができるならば、これはとてつもないスクープです。
Komoda does as he promised. He follows Toso from home to his work, monitoring every single second of struggle from the van. But apart from that, nothing seems to be happening. A calm day is followed by a quiet night. The second day follows the same pattern. But on the third day, as soon as Toso had reached his destination, we hear something that sounds like a gunshot. But as you might can tell, this was just a flat tire. As a darkening sky passes over the horizon, the death limit has almost expired. A patient Kumoda watches from the van as everything seems to point in the direction of a hoax. At 11:40 p.m., the couple has a visitor. Kumoda do a panic and dance while he watches in fear of what he's witnessing. When he finally decides to rush to the apartment,
孫さん孫さん大丈夫ですか孫さん孫さん
It's too late. The both of them have vanished, likely dead or kidnapped at this point. Then a strange phone call awaits Kumoda.
もしもし
残念でした菰田さん。
え
あなたはテストに全て不合格でした。
どういうことだ
つまり複製されるのはあなたということです。
Kumoda was never heard from again. Some of Kumoda's own folk seems to be unable to identify his whereabouts. 1 month later they visit the apartment once again, but as you likely would have guessed, there's no one to be found, only some leftover items. Unable to find any clues to Kumoda's whereabouts, they took a closer inspection of the footage, and they did find something rather interesting. On Masono's computer, they found a text passage that reveals a sinister truth, a trial of some kind, marked with 3 X's. Someone has been stalking Kumoda all along. When I said someone had been stalking Kumoda, I was not exaggerating. On the laptop there's a full timeline of what Kumoda had been doing for a day. But why? See, in 1995, Kumoda seems to be a major factor in the events that followed. He interviewed the bully leader and afterwards it all went up in flames. However, they never specified what happened to the victim, Kami no Luma, or the bully leader. It seems whatever happened to the couple follows the same pattern, although this time Kumoda wasn't so lucky. Judging by things now, whatever occurred back then is tied to this website and Kumoda. A major clue is the trial written on the computer. The 3 trials are: will he save the wife? Will he avoid staging things? Will he save the husband? It's undoubtedly a test about Kumoda's morals. He likes to see himself as the hero. The first trial begins when Kumoda is talking with a very frightened Matsuno that would rather call quits, but Kumoda convinced her to stay on the condition that he will risk his own career as a journalist if anything did happen to her. But when Kumoda watches the surveillance and sees Tosoro hit her, he does nothing. Well, the next one is quite obvious. He kinda forced Matsuno to stage this scene, which heavily applies that he did something similar in 1995. And the last one, will he save the husband? That is of course a reference to the very end, when Tosoro is endangered and Kumoda decides to do a panic and dance instead of helping him. I feel like that one is a bit excusable, but he's definitely not the hero of the story. Taking all that into context, the last phone call makes a lot more sense now, on the first rewatch. But who is the masked lady? To answer that, we need to go back to the website. At the very bottom of the website, there is a name, Nanagawa no Ranmu, which is a very odd name, since you never ever both use kanji and katakana in your name. You only use katakana for foreign names. The kanji gawa, which means river, looks awfully like me.
But wait! There's more!
Yeah, I'm sorry about that one actually. So yeah, I kept goofing around with this name, trying to figure out if there was any hidden meaning. And lo and behold, there is one. Kami no Luma. the victim that Kumoda interviewed in 1995. That might be very surprising to hear, but if you recall, one of the trials sending Kumoda's way was if he was going to stage a scene. The accident we hear about in 1995 was perhaps a failed attempt by Kumoda. And after that moment, Kami Noluma sought revenge on Kumoda and used this couple to do so. But is that really true? See, something that has been shown multiple times is this board that says, this is Masono, this is Toso. If you reverse engineer this, Sumo no uso, Oto no uso, which means lying wife, lying husband. I don't know if you have noticed this before, but before any eventful thing happens between the couple, we see Toso look at his phone to read instructions on what to do next. Even more noteworthy is that his injury switches from leg to leg day by day. And Masono never questions Komoda's ethics, even though he never holds any promises. And the last moment with Komoda, if you slow this down, you can see the couple in the background. Toso even holds a camera. As the board suggested, it was all a lie. Matsuno and Totsuo was never endangered by anything. The couple was all a facade. They never existed. What Kaminoluma's true intentions are remains unknown. But there is one more videotape, which might give us an answer to this mystery. However, it can only be broadcasted if the benefactors are satisfied with today's broadcast. This was all for the visual entertainment. Have a nice day and see you around.